Welcome to episode 145 of the Daniel Yoris podcast with today's guest, Phil Dominguez. Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Joined here today by my man, Phil. Phil, what's up, baby? Good
How you doing, bud? This is awesome to be on. One of the first ones I get to be on. So I'm really excited about this. We've been chit-chatting about it for a while, man. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, man. We've known each other for a bit. We finally got to meet in person at Andrew Coates' Evolve Strength Conference, which was awesome. Just a good place with a lot of good people, and just getting to put faces to names. Like, we interact online and all that stuff, but we actually get to see each other, shake hands, hang out. It's really cool. Absolutely.
That was such a great event, man. I mean, obviously when you go to those things, you're supposed to network, and that's what we did. I mean, I was able to chit chat with you, with, Andy and all these other people that Andrew was introducing, man. It was a really fun event. I'm going to really put that on my calendar to get up there next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was your first time in Canada?
First time. Well, I had been to Calgary, but literally just to the border of it when I was freshman year, going to freshman in college or high school. And then I hadn't been back since. So literally it was my first time that deep in there and get to experience a little bit of your guys' cold a little bit. It wasn't snowing yet, but just a little bit of your cold.
Yeah, for context for any Canadians, this was early October in Edmonton. So it wasn't winter, there was no snow, but Phil's also from LA. So anything that's even remotely cold is winter to him.
Anything under 68, I'm freezing. My bones feel it. So
yeah. And in Celsius it was probably around 15 degrees Celsius in Edmonton at that time. So for Canadians, and Edmonton's real Canada, where I live in Toronto, it doesn't get that cold. Our winter is nothing compared to winter in Edmonton.
It's funny. Yeah. That's what Dean Somerset was saying. He's like, oh, yeah, we walk around with masks during the wintertime because you actually get frozen down your lungs. I was like, wait, what? He's like, yeah, it's a thing. I was like, okay.
Yeah, it's you pull your scarf up just over your face just because your whole face, especially if you have a beard and it's a little sweaty or anything, it just freezes. You freeze your whole face.
Oh, geez. I need to experience that once in my life to say that I've done it. So at some point I will. I don't know if it's going back up to Canada or maybe even to Green Bay if it gets that cold because I'm a big NFL fan. So we'll see.
You are an NFL shareholder, that is for sure. Green Bay Packers shareholder.
Yes, I it's the biggest joke between my friends. I'm an owner. I call myself the CEO. All this, any type of dumb thing that can put you above your friends with the and the NFL level. It's yeah, I'm that guy.
That's right.
It's the dumbest thing, but I love them.
No, it's fun. Why are you a Packers fan? Are you from Green Bay?
No. I'm born and raised here in LA, and for the longest time, and we didn't have an NFL team here. The Rams were here when I was a kid. The Raiders were here, but growing up after they left, I didn't have anybody to root for, and it was literally the USC Trojans or the Bruins or whatever. But I fell in love with Brett Favre. He wore number 4. I wore number 4 in high school. I played a little quarterback, and that's where it came from. I just kept following them, and I just became a Packer fan. It's just one of those things that you just stay with them forever. And I'm so loyal to them now. And it's the weirdest things. I don't even like the color green as much, but I'll wear my green with the Packers all the time.
Yeah. It's that awkward thing of when you don't have your hometown team, you just got to pick a team. My NFL team, if anything, is the Carolina Panthers. For no reason. I'm in Toronto. We don't have a NFL team, obviously. And so when I first started getting into the NFL, Cam Newton was the guy. Just got got drafted, and I was like, oh, this guy's unbelievable. I'm just gonna root for the team that he's on. And then he was on the Panthers, of course, and so that just became my team for no other reason. And then once you pick a team, that's your team, through thick and thin. The Panthers are not great right now, but it's that's the team.
It's funny because if I didn't buy the stupid share from the Packers, I probably would have tried to leak myself back into the Rams fan just because they're here now.
Yeah.
But it's funny because my mom's a Rams fan, and she's been here ever since she was a kid, and the Rams were here when she was a kid, so she remembers all the older players, the Jackie Youngbloods and all these other guys. But now that they're back now, she's really involved with them now. I hear her screaming and yelling as much as I scream and yell with my team on when they're on. So it's pretty fun seeing her just enjoy the Rams that they're here now.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And so you played football in high school as well?
I did. I played all 4 years, and then it was even funny because I ended up being a coach at my high school for about 7 years after. So I was in school from 2000 to 2004, and then from 2005 to 2012, I was there as a coach, coaching all the levels of freshmen. So I did the JVs and the varsity level.
And that was your first introduction to coaching of any kind before you kind of went into just fitness side of things?
Absolutely. Fell in love with just being at my school. It's a big, we had a big tradition of always kind of winning in the early 80s and 90s. And we kind of struggled going into the 2000s, the mid 2000s. So my idea was try to be there for the kids in the community. Because a lot of the time that I was there, I was doing it for free. I didn't get paid for a lot of it.
Oh, wow.
So it was just being there for the kids and being there, let's win, let's bring that tradition and let's be league champs and all this other stuff. But I really spent a lot of the time in the weight room. That's where my love of fitness kind of really grew. Yeah, we worked out in high school and a lot of that stuff, but it really grew from being in the weight room so often every day with these kids for 7 years. That's where the love truly came from.
And was that your role? Were you like the strength and conditioning coach or part of the strength and conditioning team, or were you like a skill coach, or what was your actual role?
My role was actually at first, when it first started, I was a film scout. I would go to the other schools and watch them on Friday night, record their game, and then take it back so we can break it down. Now it's like you don't even do that. You could send each other links through Huddle, and just pretty much like you're recording this now. You send that out and you can break down the film that way. But at that time, nice little camera recorder, and you're filming there all 4 quarters to see what the offense was doing. Come back and break that down. So when you're breaking it down, you really get to know positions and players. And then I became a position coach. I started coaching linebackers. Then I became a defensive back coach. And then it finally flipped over to what I was really good at was coaching offense, because that was kind of like my forte in high school. I did quarterback, running back, wide receiver, a little bit of tight end. And I'm a little itty bitty guy, but playing tight end was cool because you shift there and then you move to another spot, but you line up as the tight end and you need to know his responsibilities. And that's where I got lucky, because I took the initiative as myself through all 4 years to learn our playbook. And that learning that playbook helped me my senior year, and why I was able to play the position of the fullback, which is the lead blocker for most offenses. In football is the lead blocker. And our main guy got hurt, and so they put me as the running back. But the guy that they brought in didn't know how to play the fullback position. Didn't take the responsibility of learning, whatever it was, a young kid. So he knew the running back role. So literally in game, we flip-flopped. I'm like, just follow me. And that's how that role came for me. So I learned it, and I was able to learn and teach that to everyone else because I just knew it. It never changed from the 4 years that I was there. So I knew it. You do your tweaks per game for individuals, for teams, whatever, but most of the stuff didn't change. And I just learned it, and I know it. And, and it's the basis of football is option football. And that's what we ran. We ran a variation of an option football, the veer offense. A lot of things that you see now is the spread offense. But if you take it back down a couple notches, it all comes from the veer offense or the option offense.
Right. And a huge part of that, and I've never played football, and I enjoy football as a fan, but I don't know the ins and outs of the tactics of the game. A lot of that just comes down to being prepared, like you said. Like, you have to know the playbook inside and out. You have to know each of your players' strengths and weaknesses, what this guy's capable of, what this guy's good at, what this guy's weak spot is, so we don't, run to that side because of whatever reason.
Absolutely.
And you got to know that stuff. And I think the segue into coaching with this stuff is like, or fitness in general, is just like being prepared for life rather than having to get ready. Like, you can't learn the playbook in the game. You got to know the playbook before the game. You got to be fit before like that thing happens in your life that requires you to be fit, right?
One of my favorite things is the structure that football gives you, and that's preparing you for life. You have your 3 meals a day. You have your Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday practice, and your game on Friday. You can hang your hat on that every week during football season. You can do that. Well, if you take that same template and you put it to something else, you can hang your hat on that, and that you're going to still get the result. You're going to get that game result. So that's one thing that I've really just loved about football is the structure that it gives you, because it could prepare you for life on anything. You get a bunch of reps on whatever you're doing. That will transition to something else, which will transition to something else, which will transition to something else. Very few sports, in my opinion, can give you that structure. A lot of them can, but the very disciplined structure of we're doing this by day to get this end result. And that, to me, translates a lot to fitness. We're going to do this Monday, Tuesday. We're going to do this Wednesday, Thursday. We're going to get this result on Friday, or whatever the case is.
I think that's very accurate, because a lot of other sports, the schedule is more sporadic. Like, I played soccer and hockey. Those were my sports. And like, we would have, multiple games a week, some weeks, and sometimes the game would be on Monday, could be on Tuesday, could be on Wednesday, could be Thursday. Like, we had a game every week, at least one, but it wasn't always the same. Whereas football is a little bit more dialed. Like, the game is on Friday or Sunday or whatever. And then you have your practice. So everything's very regimented, which is actually more realistic to people's lives. I think, and I think you'll agree with me on this one, Phil, like, people think their life is so busy, and my life is so chaotic, and my life is but everyone's life is very regimented. You have a lot of things going on, but like, your Mondays are more or less the same. Your Tuesdays are more or less the same. Wednesdays are more or less the same. And you can kind of schedule with like a pretty high degree of accuracy what's going to happen or what could happen on those days. And then you fit your fitness into that. And that just has to be part of it.
Absolutely. One of the things, again, with football, they teach is delayed gratification. it teaches you. I mean, you're just talking about it right now with soccer and hockey. You have like you could have a game Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whichever day of the week. You hang your hat on Friday. That's you have to wait for that day to come. So you have to go through your practice to get to that day. It's a little different with all these other sports. Basketball, you could play any day of the week. Hockey, any day of the week. Soccer, any day of the week. Football's not like that, and that's delayed gratification is probably one of the bigger things I like about that I've taken from football. Anyways, is just learning to love what I'm getting into.
And one of the biggest things in the weight room, right? It's like you can't just go into the weight room and expect that you're going to be big and strong after one day or 1 week. Like this stuff takes a while, and that can be discouraging for a lot of people. But it's just unfortunately the way it works. And so part of what we do is like battling people's need for fast results and fast expectations. Like we can deliver that. And we can point out little things that are happening on a daily basis. But are you going to lose 30 pounds and have a total body transformation in 2 weeks? Like no, it's just not going to happen.
Absolutely not. What did Miss she was at the conference, one of the speakers, her talk was on principles, and it's our game is the long game. Fitness isn't an overnight transformation. You have to build those little small details to get to the end result, and it's not going to come overnight. It never ever will. Like does a hip hop artist ever come like pop up overnight? No, he's been working on something forever. Same thing with the comedian. He's doing stuff, constantly working on his craft to be a big time comedian later on in life. I'm just comedy. I just saw someone the other day I really love. So, just tying those things together, it takes a long time to do these things. It takes a long time to build muscle. You're not going to get all nice and jacked in 6 months. You can, but that muscle's not going to be there a year from now. You got to maintain that muscle throughout the whole time and keep building on it to maintain that physique that you want.
Yeah, it's just an unfortunate part of, I think, just social media and the way all media is now is that you see the end result, right? And even if people are posting their journey all the way through it, it's like you have 200 followers when you do that, and like, no one's going to see it. And then all of a sudden you're like this big, whatever, you've done the thing, and it could be a fitness and it can be literally any other, business, whatever. And then people are like, oh, well, you got that thing. You have the thing. I want that thing. I want that result. And they didn't realize that for the past, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, you've been just like grinding day in, day out, and you don't see any work for it. Like, I know that you're a big pro wrestling guy. I listened to The Rock on Rogan's podcast recently, and he was talking about the start and his story and how he got into wrestling. And like now you see him, he's like The Rock, right? He's the biggest movie star maybe ever. But it didn't always used to be that way. Like wrestling in, for free, getting injured, training, doing nothing, like not having a path in life. Like if we would have known who he was at that time, like universally, we would think this guy is nothing. He's just a guy. But now he's The Rock. We just didn't see it at the time.
You needed all his little transformations over his character to understand that's how he got to be The Rock. Why we call him The Rock. We didn't call him The Rock when he first came out. His name was Rocky Maivia. But his character transformation changed from being a good guy to a bad guy because he hated what was going down. He sliced it in half and became that guy. And then he came to Hollywood Rock, and then he became this guy. So it's a transformation, working on this craft, working on that craft, working on this character, working on that character, to where he wants to be. And he wanted to be an all-time movie star, and that he grew up that way. He wanted to be known by everybody, and he's probably the most well-known individual on the planet right now. I mean, I don't think anybody's more well-known than him.
Yeah, he's definitely in the near the top of that. I don't know how to go about ranking that, but he's for sure up there.
Definitely. I mean, people. It's funny how like when he rolls up on people and they're looking like at the bus, and it's like, hey, has anybody seen The Rock? And everybody just goes crazy on the bus. It's like, whoa, dude, you're well known.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like that. It's that constant work like throughout his entire career. Which he's obviously in great shape, but he didn't just get that way yesterday. Like he's been training for years. If you watch him when he first started, he was kind of big and bulky, but a little more on the flabby side. And then as he goes, he got really shredded and started getting bigger. And then he started the roles with the Fast and Furious roles that he just got. I mean, he's as big as a freaking refrigerator at that point, So it takes a long time to get that big. But if you look at his workouts now, he's maintaining it, whether it's at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, he's maintaining it because that's what he wants. Those are his goals and what he wants to do. Yeah, and it's part of his job, and we can get into like the dedication and the, let's call it, the help that he has with that and all that, and no shade on it. Like if I was in his role, I would be doing the same stuff because it's part of your job and part of your shtick, right? So
give me that rolling gym any day.
Exactly. Give me all of the stuff, right? The nutrition, the supplements, quote unquote supplements. But anyways, it's a dedication to fitness and just to the long game.
Absolutely.
Where was your transition then from football into just the fitness side of things, like getting out of sport and working with regular people, and how did that come about?
That just started recently with because of the pandemic. So here, when the pandemic happened in 2020, everything got shut down, and I just started buying equipment because I love working out, and I didn't have anything. Actually, I'm in my gym right now, my home gym, and
Phil has a wicked home gym, by the way. Well, anyone who's watching this, you need to go to Phil's Instagram and just like watch his stories and posts and stuff. Like Phil's outdoor home gym is probably one of the best I've ever seen.
Oh, well, thank you. I really appreciate that, man. That's pretty cool of you to say, dude. I just started buying a bunch of stuff, getting back to it. And one of my buddies, he's like, why don't you just train me? And I'm like, well, I've trained a lot of people, but one thing that I never did was program. I wasn't good with programming. I didn't know programming. I knew workouts, overhead pressing, squatting, benching, all the fun stuff, but didn't know how to organize it, how to give you a program, that sort of thing. And luckily, I came across this group called Show Up Fitness, Chris Hitchko and Show Up Fitness. And what he does is he teaches trainers how to program. He teaches trainers anatomy, social media, all the stuff that you need to be successful. Started chit-chatting with him and started doing his live classes. And what I like about him is he does have live classes pretty much every day of the week. And you can take them, your case examples, and they'll talk about it in class. And this is how I would train and why you would train it that way for whatever specific reasons. And if you need help making a program for that person, they'll give you the program and they'll help you how to program it and why they would program that way on every sense. And for someone that's diabetes, overweight, anybody that wants to be athletic, whatever the case is. And I really, truly fell in love with his system and how he teaches trainers how to train. From the anatomy portion, from understanding the rotator cuff to the 17 muscles around the shoulder to the 20 around the hip and all these other things. I just fell in love with that. And I started going to his seminars, and that's where everything just took off from it. I started going to his seminars, traveling with him, and I'm kind of in the process of almost being an instructor for him online. I go to help instruct in person, but online is where I might even have my own class coming up pretty soon to help him out with that.
Phenomenal. Well, congratulations on that. But I think it's also,
thank you, man.
I'm happy that you mentioned that, because a lot of people think that they know how to work out. They get good results for themselves. They like going to the gym and they're like, well, then I can be a trainer. And like, of course, anyone could be a trainer, just the same way anyone could be any job, right? But that doesn't make I could just call myself an astronaut tomorrow. It doesn't mean I know anything about being an astronaut, right? I'm sure I could learn it, but I don't know it right now. But the programming and the anatomy and some of the underlying science, I guess, if you will, is the gap between how to train yourself and how to train other people. And that's what I see with a lot of like younger trainers coming up. Not that I'm so old, but younger trainers coming up and people getting into it. It's like, yeah, they just like to work out themselves. But when you have to apply that thing to, the 37-year-old woman who has knee pain and hasn't worked out in 15 years because she had 2 kids and a job and all this stuff. It's like that thing that you were doing in the gym when you're 18 and it's just like everything works. It doesn't apply to that person. And you can't just, use that bodybuilding workout that you found online with that 37-year-old woman, because she's not a bodybuilder. Those things don't work for her. And you have to figure out how to apply that. And that's really one of the hardest things and one of the biggest values of having a coach and actually hiring a trainer is like, all the information is out there, but how do I organize it and actually make it for me? So I'm happy that you said that, because it's a really important thing to know for people, anyone who's listening to this who might be thinking about becoming a trainer, but even anyone thinking about, well, what do I need a trainer for? It's those little intangible things. You all know the exercises. How do you organize them together to make it make sense for you? That's the hard part, and that's probably one of the biggest values of having a trainer.
Absolutely. So the one thing, again, I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes or how you got your certification or whatever, but one thing Chris with Show Up Fitness is always kind of like picking on why he kind of started this company is people that take their NASM certification and they take it's now an open book test, but you take your test and now you're certified to go train people. That is exactly the opposite of how he teaches everybody, because how do you know how to train that 37-year-old that has bad knees? That NASM book doesn't teach you any of that. It doesn't teach you, it teaches you 4 actions of what your lats do. And there's actually 8, there's something else there's other things that they do. So he really gets into those parts of the stuff that you're not learning. You're not learning business skills. You're not learning how to build your audience or what your audience is, how to talk to your niche. There's a couple like other things. His biggest thing is anatomy. If you know how to program, if you know your anatomy really well, you're going to program pretty well because you know exactly what these muscles are doing and how they're doing it, why they're doing it, stabilizers, everything like that.
Yeah.
So he created his own CPT, his own certified personal trainer certification. And he's actually partnered with some of the bigger gyms, Equinox, Lifetime. And next year in 2024, once a month at a Lifetime, he's going to be giving a seminar to some of their trainers or whoever else. And that's the biggest difference between us, I say us, Show Up Fitness, and anybody that's done NASM, ACE, ISSA, or any of those other ones, because those are just textbook, he calls them textbook trainers. You're not learning from professionals or going through an internship. And that's what he does. He actually has a in-person internship or the online classes where you're getting instructors to teach you how to program, how to regress, how to progress, and all these other things. He has a class specifically for each one: anatomy, programming, how to progress, regress, nutrition, social media, a couple other things as well. So it's a great program all the way around because he gives you just all the fundamentals on how to do it, and it's up to you how to create it.
I love that. Fitness or training rather, is very much an art and a science. You can't just know all the textbooks and what's the origin and insertion of this muscle and where does this tendon run to. And like, you need to know those things, but you need to apply them to actual human beings. Like, one of the things that I think is an incorrect way of learning fitness, and this goes for potentially new trainers or just people in general working on their own fitness, is trying to remember like a Rolodex of exercises. Oh, what chest exercise do I do? Bench press, incline press, machine press, push-ups, whatever. You have to know those things. But what if you hurt your shoulder? Then what do you do? How do you like get around this thing? And the only way to know that is you have to at least have some understanding of the anatomy of what you're actually doing rather than just memorizing exercises. Because even if an injury is even a bad example, because that's maybe a little bit too complex. What if you're using a chest press machine and then the chest press machine is broken at the gym that day? How do you do that? Well, the chest press is not the thing that grows your chest. It's the way that you're pushing and using those actual muscles. So how can you rig up a new exercise to get at the same muscle or that same movement pattern? And so thinking about anatomy and biomechanics a little bit, and those words can seem intimidating, but if you can have a base understanding of what's actually going on there, then you have essentially unlimited exercises, right? Even for you in a home gym, and as well equipped as your gym is, you don't have like every single piece of equipment that's available to you. So I'm sure you get pretty creative with some of the setups and some of the exercise modification, just like, okay, we've got to get this thing done. We've got to work this muscle. How do we do that? I don't have that machine here. So how do we do that? And the only reason you can do it is because you know your anatomy, you know your biomechanics, and you can figure it out. You can make any exercise out of anything.
Yeah, basically. And that's one of the biggest things he's big on is knowing your core patterns. He has a class that he brings on just Equinox trainers that are different Equinoxes around the States and everywhere else. And what happens at an Equinox when everything's busy at 5:00 in the afternoon and people are big there and you need to do that push pattern. Well, I can't do bench press because it's taken. I can't do, I can't do incline because that's taken. Well, you can do a decline using a glute bridge by still pressing, and now you're still getting a little bit of glute, you're still getting a bit of that. So he'll teach you how to move around the gym, think on the fly, and use those core patterns to get the results that you want. I think that's phenomenal because you don't want to stay kind of doing the same exercises all the time, even though you are. But there's a way to like spice it up a little bit, but you're still getting the same results and the same movement patterns that you want.
Yeah, you can really change the exercise in the eyes of a client without actually changing the exercise.
it's crazy. Oh, you're just going to hold that there and I'm going to press this way and it's different. Still doing the chest press. Yes.
Exactly. But it keeps it fun because that's part of the art of it, right? We have to the people don't love training the same way you and I love training. And like, we get that. Like, I don't need to like feel so fired up to go to the gym. I don't need to like kick myself in the ass to get in a workout. And like, that is the part of the day that I look forward to. If anything, I have to put it off so that I like get my other stuff done. Right. Because I'd rather just be in the gym all day long. But people don't like that. People are not like that, obviously. So we have to find ways to like make it fun, make it exciting, and make these little kind of like switches or changes of where you're changing the exercise but not actually changing the effect is huge. And even for you, like something that I noticed that you use a lot of is different pieces of equipment that are maybe not as traditional. And it's not that different, but it's different enough. Like right behind you have the safety squat bar. I know you're a big fan of the trap bar, use the slant boards, those kind of things, which are like in the training world, like for you and I, those are pretty standard, but a lot of people in regular gyms, like they've never seen a lot of gyms don't even have a safety squat bar, but
yeah, exactly.
They've never seen the trap bar. Like, oh, what's that thing for? Why would I use a slant board? And so I think even the way you use those things, and I kind of want you to talk about maybe some of the benefits and drawbacks of like something like the safety squat bar, because I know it's a big one. It really makes things accessible for a lot of different people where you're getting the same effect and maybe in a more comfortable or fun way for some people.
Right. So you talk safe squat right now, so we'll talk safety bar. Dan John's the one that created. Now he patented the goblet squat. So everyone, I mean, for being a meathead, in the early 80s, 90s, we're all doing back squat. But I'm doing this. I may not even have shoulder mobility to get to this right here. That's where the safety bar comes in, because you can hold it right here, just like a goblet squat. Like you're starting now, you can load it. That's one of the benefits that I like. So the way I teach the progression on squat is, we'll figure out if you can even squat. We'll look at your squat mechanics first. We'll look at how you function as a squat, and we'll find your feet placement. We'll figure out where you're at there. After that, we'll start loading with the goblet squat. Maybe if you can't do a goblet squat, we'll go to a bench or a bar or a box and play with your range of motion there. Like my guy, so right now, when we first started squatting, he couldn't go all the way down. He could only go to the bench. Then I moved into a box. Now he's on a slant board, getting a little bit lower in, getting more hip flexion there. So I'm happy about that. There's mad progression on that. So after safety bar squat, I will go to, let's see, how do I do it? Sorry. I go goblet squat, I go double kettlebell, and then I do safety bar, and then I do back bar. That's my progression on how I do squat. Other people, sometimes they'll just do a goblet and a back bar, and that's it. I think it's a little harder to do this. So I come here and I get people to get used to doing this first.
Of course. No, I agree with you. And I also understand that like the progressions are not exactly the same every single time, right? That's like the general progression, but for some people they might skip steps or go in a different direction or, what have you. Just for anyone who's only listening and doesn't see the video of this and doesn't know what it is, the safety squat bar is the bar that looks like a regular bar, but then it has two handles in the front. So you kind of wrap it like around your neck, the front of your shoulders, and you can hold it slightly in front of you. The bulk of the bar kind of still sits on your back, but it kind of wraps around your shoulders, just in case if people are not familiar with what that bar is. But it's a great way to get around things.
Yeah, definitely. One of my favorite variations out of it with the safety bar is actually the Hatfield variation. Luckily, my rack has pegs on it, so I don't even hold on to it as when you do the Hatfield, and you just hold on to the pegs, and you can really just load it and go, because you're stable now, rather than trying to hold up here and trying to figure out your balance. You're stable, ready to go, and just work your pattern and just drive your feet and go. It's a very awesome variation if you really want to get into heavy squatting.
Yeah. This is one of, I think, the advantages of just getting used to what all the equipment in the gym does. So if your gym is lucky enough to have a safety squat bar, try and use it. Try and figure out how to use it, because it might be the thing that's better for you as opposed to a regular bar. And unless you're trying to be a power lifter, you absolutely do not have to back squat or front squat or overhead. So you don't ever have to use a barbell for anything. While I love a barbell and I will use it a lot with my clients and with myself and all that stuff, we don't actually have to do that because it's not part of our sport. So if it doesn't work for some person, they don't have the shoulder mobility, it just doesn't feel comfortable for them, there's a bit of an injury or something's not feeling right, or for whatever reason the exercise just doesn't look right, we can always just switch things. We don't have to regular deadlift. We can trap our deadlift. We don't have to back squat. We can safety bar squat. We can do all these things, but you need to know the equipment that you have available to you to be able to kind of like shift and make that call to just make your workout as effective as possible, rather than saying, working out's not for me, and then you just leave the gym for forever.
Yeah. Hey, for most people, I mean, if you can just do a goblet squat and a double kettlebell squat, that might be just enough for them right there. Because holding two kettlebells at 40 kb, whatever it is, it's gonna be pretty heavy, pretty challenging. That's 80 pounds right there, up and down. That's pretty tough. Yeah,
exactly. You can definitely get away with just doing that, right? And again, it depends on your goals, depending on your age and your ability and all that stuff. On that note, though, you said like 40-pound kettlebells, not 4-pound kettlebells. And while you have a home gym, like it's a gym at your house outside, it's not like it's just, booty bands and body weight workouts. Like you get all your clients lifting heavy, and lifting heavy is a relative term, of course, right? Like what might be heavy for person A is not heavy for person B, but it's heavy relative to themselves. And I think that's like, it's so valuable in this world of comparison where we're trying to compare like, oh, that guy, that girl lifts so much heavier than me. But really, you just have to lift heavier than yourself, but still gotta lift heavy. You still gotta push it. Like, 12-pound dumbbells, like maybe great to start, but like you're going to outgrow those pretty quickly.
Pretty quickly. I know one thing is, like, I try to tell my clients as much as possible, you're not comparing yourself to anybody else. You're competing with your own self. You want to be better than you were the day before. You know, everyone talks about the 1% method, get 1% better every day. But you're looking at yourself because you want to pay yourself today who you want to be tomorrow. So you want to look really good right now, or tomorrow, start working on it right now. And that way you can see the results later. And I'm always talking about lifting heavy. We got to lift heavy. It's going to be good for your bones. It's good for all the things that we all, you know, health-wise that we talk about. But one, it gives them a challenge for themselves. If I did that last time, I feel like the next time I come, I should probably go a little heavier. And that's always a challenge for yourself. And everyone, if you don't like a challenge for yourself, something kind of wrong with you. You know what I mean? Like you gotta find some type of fire, because everyone likes challenges. It doesn't matter what it is. You can be the best knitter in the world. And if you need to challenge yourself to knit 5 times faster, that's a challenge for yourself that you can build on, and you can time yourself on that and get better at it. So don't tell me you don't like a challenge. You just say you do, but everyone likes a challenge.
Yeah. Everyone likes a challenge. And I think even more importantly, maybe to get more nitty gritty on that, is people like getting better at stuff. And the gym is this is going to sound silly, but it's so easy to get better at it. Like you keep showing up, you keep doing the work. It's so easily measurable. And that's maybe more what I mean. It's not that it's easy to get strong and all that stuff, because it's hard work, but it's very measurable and very easy to determine, oh, I've improved on this since last time, right? I added 1 more rep, I added 1 more pound, I rested less, they did it with better quality or like better form. Like there's so many ways to measure progress, and you should be making progress every single workout realistically, and you can measure it, and that's a really good way to see that you're doing better, especially for people who like don't love the gym. And like I could go to the gym and work out every single day and never measure anything and still be happy with it. But I realize that most people are not like that. So you've got to have this like measurable goal, like, okay, I'm lifting heavier, I'm doing better, and things are happening, and therefore you seek that progress, right? Because that's just the thing that keeps people coming back.
Progress over perfection any day of the week, man. Always.
Do you still bring a lot of like the football training, like football athlete mentality into the way you train your clients? And by mentality, I don't mean like, you know, we're trying to smash the other team. I mean just like athletic style training, obviously scaled up or down to the individual.
A little bit of yes, a little bit of no. It really depends what that individual wants. A lot, and people come to me because they really like the mobility stuff that I do. Mm-hmm. How and why? And that started because of Show Up. Within the Show Up community, I got really good with moving my hips and my shoulders. So a lot of people saw that because I was posting a lot of it, and that's really what they come to me for. So I do blend a lot of it together, like a lot of the dynamic warm-ups. I'll use that as a filler stuff to get them to do a little hip mobility or a little shoulder mobility, whatever it is. So I try to blend a little bit of it. My big thing was, when I first started doing this, was I wanted to be the Eric Bischoff of fitness. Like I wanted to blend his style of wrestling with WWE style, like make a big boom over here so people look over there. What's he doing? They go that way. That's kind of what my idea was when I was doing a lot of the mobility stuff. It was kind of becoming really popular within the last couple of years too. In 2020, it just became really popular. It's a big word that people like to use, is mobility. It's really nothing. It's just, can you control this joint through the range of motion? That's mobility. Strength training plus stretching is mobility. That's that's really what it is. But people like how it looks. It looks fancy schmancy on Instagram. I want to do it. It's part of my training. So we'll add it in there for you. Realistically, you just need a couple of those core patterns that we were talking about, and we'll be okay. But that filler exercise that I do is the mobility stuff that people like. And for me, that's why they come to me. That's the big reason why they like the way I do the 90-90 stuff with holding this leg up in the air, or, you know, doing hip airplanes or figure 4 contours, whatever it is. That's the stuff that they like. And I'm like, all right, this is what we're going to do. Here you go.
It's interesting that you mention it like that, because I 100% agree with you. Like some of the more popular or common, like quote unquote mobility exercises are actually like not that effective. And oftentimes just like strength train, like regular quote unquote regular strength training through a full range of motion is actually just like the best mobility training for people.
Honestly, it really is. And that's when I kind of figured that out. I was like, well, maybe it is a little something of mobility stuff that I'm doing right. But then when you go to seminars, you start listening to people that have been doing it forever. And it's just literally that. And that quote that I got from Tony Gentilcore, who got from someone else, it's just strength training plus stretching equals mobility. Can you take it through the range of motion that it's capable of doing? That's really all it is. So I've kind of gotten a little away from it in like my personal training. But people like it, so that I give them a lot of that.
Yeah, I don't mean to say that there's not value in those like regular or common mobility drills. There's definitely value, even if it's just warming up and whatever, but it also has to be done right. Like doing the thing just because you saw it on Instagram doesn't make it effective. Like you have to do it effectively to make it effective. You know, like better is better, not more is not always better kind of thing.
Yeah. So you could take some of it away and a lot of it will be even better for your body. Like if, again, taking away mobility, if you just breathe, it'll give you more mobility anyways. So just do that and you'll be fine. But they like to do all the stuff and all right, here you go. We'll do it. It's fine.
Yeah. Expand on that a little bit.
On which part?
The breathing part. Why does breathing give you more mobility?
Depending on how your joints are lined up. Luke Worthington talks a lot about this. He's a very famous personal trainer out of the UK. So this is your scapula. And most people, when they don't breathe really well, they're in these different forms. And you want this to be the light and how you can move: upward rotation, protraction, retraction, elevation, depression. And this light will give you more. So if you can just breathe and get the inside of your scapula to play with your rib cage and breathe here, breathe into your ribs, breathe into your everywhere, 3D breathing, you'll see yourself have more range of motion because it's playing nicely together with your ribs, with your rib cage. It's just expanding and playing nicely. That's what you want. You want it to, and if you look at the way a scapula is, the bone of it, it's kind of like it's kind of curved in where it plays really well with the rib cage. If you can get that to play well, you'll have some nice shoulder mobility. If you don't, if you're not breathing and you're kind of tense, that light goes away, that light beam goes away, and now you're kind of stuck in these different areas, and we got to figure out why. So we go back to your assessment, and now you can figure out why. It's just a little bit of breathing. Play with your diaphragm, get it to relax your nervous system a little bit, and you'll have more range of motion.
Agreed. I think this is actually somewhat of a missed discussion in some of like the breathwork and mobility circles, where people are very adamant about diaphragmatic breathing only, and like that is extremely valuable. I'm not like shitting on that. Of course it's good, but your rib cage also moves. It's not like a static, statue structure. Like there is movement between each of the ribs, and that expansion is also part of one's ability to breathe. So yes, you want to belly breathe and fill up your belly and push the diaphragm and use that, but then you also want to fill up into your chest and lungs and everything because of that interplay with your scapula, which, like you said, it sits like a cup right on the edge of on the backside of your rib cage. And if that thing is not moving and it's just stuck, well, now you're making multiple structures become one structure, and it just doesn't move very well, and it's not very nice. And you wonder why you have no shoulder mobility, but it's like, can you even take a full breath in? That's probably going to help you a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. When I went to Tony Gentilcor's and Luke Worthington's seminar right after the pandemic finished, that was one of the biggest things that I learned, that people tend to breathe up into kind of like their scalenes, right, like in this area. That translates into kind of going into your temples, give you headaches, anxiety. Mm-hmm. But if you just relax, breathe, relax, get full expansion, a lot of that will go away. It'll go away if you just, and one of the ways that we talk about breathing is getting the full exhale out, where people think of breathing, and it might sound a little funny, but people think of breathing as that's not a full breath out. When you're breathing out and you want full exhale, it's literally, you're almost turning red in the face. Where when I tell people to do it here at the wall, I want them to blow the wall down, blow my wall down, knock it over, give it to, and it becomes a little violent where, and you have so much air in your stomach or in your diaphragm, you need to get that out. And that's where the coaching comes in, because if you think you're at that end of that exhale, I can still talk. You shouldn't be able to talk when you're fully exhaling out. Right. So it really helps out a lot.
Yeah, it's so interesting that people don't really think about breathing as like a mechanical thing or any skill involved in breathing. And skill is maybe not the right word here, but there is like, you can learn how to breathe better. There is like a very heavy mechanical aspect of breathing, and most people actually don't know how to do it. And that may sound a little bit ridiculous to some people, but it's like you take someone through like a very simple box breathing exercise, which is like super intro, right? Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4, like very simple. And people are like, oh, I can't like coordinate. I can't figure this out. I feel weird. I have these sensations in my body. And it's like, whoa, hold on. This is just like basic, like level 0.1 breathing. And it's not anyone's fault. Like if you just haven't taken that conscious breath and really thought about the mechanics of your breathing ever before, how would you ever know? And so for a lot of people, like honestly, learning how to breathe is probably step one of their fitness.
I couldn't agree more. Like when you, I guess when, again, learning from Tony and from Luke, the dead bug, everyone kind of thinks it's like it's an ab workout. It's all this and that. And yes, it's a little hip flexors and this, but I mean, that's the number one reason why they taught me to do it is because of your alignment. It's going to align your scapula, align your hips. Even if you do say like a side plank and you breathe, you'll have more hip mobility off of that. If you just breathe regular, you'll have more hip mobility. If you just breathe normal up on top, you'll have more shoulder mobility. So they taught us how to use the dead bug as like your warm up to get everything moving, to get everything aligned. Your ABCs, your alignment, your breathing, and your control. Are you aligned correctly throughout your entire system? And now let's breathe correctly. Let's do the 3D breathing. And now can you control the position that you're in within your breathing? Yeah. Whether you're squatting, deadlifting, whatever it is.
There's a reason why in things like yoga, breathing is such a huge part of it. And the instructor will tell you when to breathe in, when to breathe out in accordance with the movements. Breathing is a big part of sport like tennis. When they're hitting the ball, they're breathing out, or boxing or fighting where they're breathing out when they're punching, and like that noise. I know that's really annoying in the microphone, so I apologize to everyone listening, but it's like that breathing noise. Like they're not making that noise because it sounds cool. They're making that noise because they're breathing as a part of a function of what they're doing. And so when you can understand that and scale it back, of course, you're not a fighter or a pro tennis player or a yogi sitting on top of a mountain, but you are a human being who needs to do things. And so if you can't understand how to breathe, maybe that's a place to start. The challenge, and what we kind of referenced before, is like for most people, this is going way over their heads and incredibly boring to sit there and like learn how to breathe. So we've got to like use things like dead bugs and squats and like find actual exercises that are more normal as like a proxy to teach people how to breathe. And it's like, oh, when you learn how to breathe in that deadlift, now all of a sudden you can deadlift more, and then it clicks, rather than like, oh, let's just sit on the floor and breathe for an hour.
Yeah, and literally going back to football, that's why I like working out so much, because with football, you take those progressions too, and it just translates to this too. You're going to take these progressions over, and it's going to translate it to better breathing. We're going to use the band work. We're going to protract. We're going to push away. We're going to breathe. Now, guess what? We're going to breathe normally now, and how much more relaxed you're going to feel.
Yeah. It's actually huge, and I think we can really just kind of keep talking about that for a really long time. But again, it's hard to, I think, understand this just through like audio. I think you got to really have someone take you through it and have someone coach you through it, because we can try and be general about it, but like you have to feel this to sort of understand what it's like. Yeah,
it's definitely a big time coaching intensive thing. You need to be really on point when you're teaching this, so they understand what you're feeling. A little bit of like lightheadedness. A lot of it is like, I learned from Eric Cressy, like when you're doing the breathing exercise, you can put your hands like on the back of their scapula or on the inferior border. Let's get a little technical here, and help them breathe while getting that scap to wrap around the rib cage, and they feel it in their armpit as they should. And that, again, coaching intensive. If you don't know where to put your hands or what you're looking for, you're gonna fuck something up and you're gonna be a little off somewhere, But if you find out where and knowing your anatomy, you'll be able to learn these things really well to help your clients out. And once they're able to breathe, it's more of a benefit to them than actually lifting heavy, because they're more relaxed, and it's something that they don't get unless they do like a lot of yoga and those types of things like you were mentioning earlier.
And it translates over so easily. Like I've had clients who like they just figure out the breathing pattern in something more simple, maybe like a rack pull, and all of a sudden they can lift like 50, 75, 100 more pounds just because they figured out how to like control their breath and brace properly and expand and contract and whatever correctly. And it's like, oh, now we have all this extra strength. Like nothing happened in their glutes and hamstrings. Like they did it yesterday. All of a sudden today they're lifting 100 more pounds. Like why? Because they figured out how to breathe.
They figured how to breathe or how to maintain stiffness. And that's another big one. And again, there's breathing and then there's learning how to maintain stiffness, which are they're pretty much two separate things, but you need to breathe in, keep it tight, and, do all the things that you need to do and go through that motion, whatever you're talking about. But two separate things where you have to teach them how to breathe, and then you have to teach them how to brace. Pretty tough. You got to understand coaching and on how to do that.
Interesting the way you say that, because it actually made me think of so much of actually lifting and progressing and lifting is learning how to actually not move. It's like, how do I move just the thing that I want to move and nothing else? Like, I'm sure you see this with clients. It's one of like, I find it funny, and it's like a pet peeve of people who should be better at training than they are. But like the happy dance feet with when people are bench pressing, and it's like, why are you tapping your feet so much and moving your legs all around? If you just squeeze your butt, dig your feet into the floor, like you're gonna be stronger on the bench press. But you're like having this huge energy leak through your body. It's like if you just get better at not moving, you'll actually be better at lifting.
I giggle at that too. I was really big on that. Like when you're squatting, you do a little happy dance when you're squatting too. You move your feet around, or the other one is like you're kind of like shaking the weight and everything. Well, you're leaking energy when you're doing that. Like you're gonna be tired when you're doing that. So stop doing that. Just get in, take 2 steps back, and go. So you mentioned earlier about learning how to maintain your breath work, and I trained my mom back here, and my mom's 65, and I have her deadlifting back here, and once she figured out the breathing, her deadlift went up from I think like 115 when she kind of first started out to where she's at right now, 155, which is pretty good. 65-year-old doing 165 is pretty good. I'm really happy about that. But because she does yoga, she understood a little bit easier, and it didn't take me as long to help her with her breathing because she understood how to do that and maintain bracing and positioning. So that's
super impressive.
Add all of that, all you yogis out there who are listening, please continue doing so, but just go lift a little heavy weights, please. That's all. Yeah. Add that in.
Despite what you may think and what the instructor may say and how the class may be marketed, yoga, Pilates, these type of things are actually not strength training. I'm sorry to burst the bubble. This is just the way it is. We don't make the rules. That's just how it is. It doesn't mean that it's not good. It's phenomenal. It's just good for what it's good for and not good for what it's not good for, which is strength training and building muscle.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. There's the principles of hypertrophy aren't there, and everything that you're looking for is just not there. They're great places to go to get what you're looking for. Maybe it's a community that you want to be a part of. Maybe it's a certain movement that you like because it's helping, but you're not strength training, and you're actually not strengthening what you're looking for. You need to be under tension. You need to be lifting weights to do all those types of things. So please just add strength training, but continue doing that. And I guarantee you'll feel a lot better than what you're doing right now.
I think one way to kind of explain this, and it will sound biased because it's a story about myself, and people be like, oh, well, you're like a fitness guy, so it doesn't count. But anyways, ignore that part of it, if you will. Get that out of your head. But I'd obviously been training for a long time, and I had gone to a yoga class at one point. This was a few years ago for the first time ever. And I'd never been to a yoga class, but obviously I've been training, have pretty good control over my body, pretty, decently strong, all that stuff. And like she was asking me to do all this stuff. She kept using like the correct like names of the yoga poses, like the
okay.
I don't even whatever language it is, Sanskrit, I think, the Sanskrit names, and she's like saying to do this with me, and I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. And she's asking me to do a handstand and getting me to do all these things. She's like, how long have you been doing yoga for? I'm like, this is literally my first class ever. She's like, but how are you so good at this? And I said, one, I didn't know that you could be good at yoga. I thought you did or you didn't. I didn't think it was like a competition. But two, the realistic answer is because I had good control of my body. I was pretty strong. I was pretty mobile, and I could contort myself into whatever positions like she was asking me to do. The reason that I say this is because the opposite is not true. I've trained tons of people who come to me, and Phil, I'm sure you have as well. They're like, yeah, I'm pretty fit. Like I do yoga all the time. It's like, okay, great. I'm sure you're healthy, but like, let's get you in a squat. Let's get you in a bench press. And they can't figure out how to do it. It doesn't translate upwards, but it does. The strength training does translate to being better at yoga because you actually get control over your body and understand how to move. But there's a hard stop limit to the strength that you can build in yoga, and you can have control of your body, but you don't have control over external objects.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing about lifting is maintaining that gravity force pull wherever it's coming from. Make sure you can maintain it. And that's translating over to yoga. When you don't have anything, that's why you're able to maintain that position, because you're already strong in whatever position you're in. You're able to control that. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with yoga. I love watching people tell me about. I love watching people do yoga, but like watching people tell me about it, and they light up about it because they love yoga so much because it really helps them mentally. And the way I've always kind of thought about yoga is, to me, like glorified stretching. Mm-hmm. That's kind of how I look at it. Like when you're holding the position, that should be turned on. Your oblique should be firing up, and your glute, whatever position you're in. That's how I've looked at it. Like, well, if you can just, again, add them together, you're going to be spot on fine. You're going to be dropping it like it's hot on a squat, lifting a shit ton of weight, and then maintaining that position, sweating in hot yoga better than anybody else.
Exactly.
And I think it's not to sound biased or anything like that, but if you just do those two things, you're going to you're going to find everything that you're looking for.
Yeah, it's hard not to think that you and I are biased because this is what we do, but also we're just right. This is how these are the rules. Like we don't invent physiology. Like a yogi is not going to be super strong at controlling external forces. They're going to be great at controlling their body, maybe if they do it right. But also yoga is more of like a spiritual and like mental psychological practice. The movement just facilitates that in the truest sense of yoga. And I've talked to some like people who are pretty deep into yoga, and that's what it is. It's not about the workout. It's not about trying to get jacked or trying to lose weight or trying to even get flexible. The movement just facilitates the mental practice of it or the spiritual practice of it, and that's how kind of I think it should stay. And that's its place, and it's a phenomenal place. It's just like let's just try not to pretend to be things that we're not.
Right.
Yeah. So I think we probably beat that horse a little bit too much now, when we don't need to keep shitting on yoga. That was not the intention of this. It's again,
no, definitely
we've
not.
said it too many
definitely
times.
Not.
It's really good. It's just it is what it is. One thing that I wanted to, another tool that I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on, and just for you to expand on before you start to wrap it up here a little bit. A thing that you use commonly that has become more common in the Instagram world, at least, is just the slant board and like the heel elevation and stuff. So can you talk about how you use that and like why you use that? And you mentioned it earlier, but talk a little bit about the slant board and like its uses and stuff like that.
And I just lost a little bit of sound here, so let me apologize on that first off really quick.
Okay. No, you sound good. I can still hear you.
Okay, cool. I use the slant board just to help people get into a deeper hip flexion. A big thing is knees over toes and this and that. He was the guy, but essentially it just gets you into a better squat position. Some people need that heel elevation to get their knees over because they just don't have that mobility. There's that word again. They don't have the strength in their four quad muscles to do all that. So we elevate them a little bit to help them get into that, and eventually I work on their dorsiflexion, on their ankle mobility. So we'll check that, but eventually they're going to get strong enough to get into a deep hip flexion. Without that, we'll strengthen their ankle, and then we'll take a look at their squat pattern. But essentially it's just to get them to get into a better squat position, whatever they're doing. If it's a reverse lunge or however, whatever I'm looking at is where their ankle's at and getting their knee over that toe.
Yeah, I use it very much in the same way. It's not like a forever solution. It's just like, hey, until we can actually get this ankle moving properly, quote unquote, or more fully, maybe is a better word, let's use this, take the ankle kind of out of it, and then it's going to get your hips moving properly so you can change effectively like the length of your tibia so that you can get into a deeper squat. Your hips can feel that, your knees can feel that, and then we can work on the ankle piece until it kind of catches up and you can kind of move fully. But it's a great way to kind of train the mobility of that thing when you don't actually have the mobility of it yet.
Absolutely. I like doing like when I warm people up, is doing ankle mobility. I always add ankle mobility some way, somehow. People don't think that it actually helps you squat getting deeper, but it really, really does.
Yep.
Your ankles and your adductors, you need to warm those areas up so they can get in proper function, and you'll feel the difference when you warm them up. Whether you use a band on it, use a kettlebell to go over your toes, whatever it is, warm your ankles up, and you'll even further than that, warm your big toe up, and you'll feel a big difference when you're squatting and when you're deadlifting if you do that.
Phil, do you mean to say that people shouldn't skip their warm-ups in the workouts? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, I am. If you are coming in just to lift, we're going to stop and we're going to say, let's go warm up. We got to warm up. We got to prep the system some way or another. That nervous system needs to know we're doing something.
Yeah, it's so underrated how much better your workout will be with just even a bad warm-up. Honestly, just like a 3-minute, like quote unquote bad warm-up will make your workout exponentially better than if you just get in there and lift. Like there's a guy in my gym who comes in, I see him very often and works out, and he'll come in and he'll just max out like whatever lift he's doing that day. He goes to failure on his very first set of the day, and that's like his working weight. Like if he's benching, whatever, let's say 100 pounds, I don't know, whatever it is, he'll just like throw 100 pounds on the bar or the 50 dumbbells or whatever, bench it until he can't go anymore, and like that's it. He just starts his workout, and I'm like, man, this guy, one, I actually have no idea how he's been injured, and I think he has been injured because I hasn't seen him training legs in a long time. But two, it's like, dude, you're not making any progress. You'd be just performing so much better if you just took 5 minutes just to like warm up a little bit. It doesn't have to add so much time to your workout, but it's going to add so much more effectiveness to your workout.
Absolutely. I don't know if you heard of Dr. Andy Galpin. I'm sure you have.
Of course.
his famous podcast or episodes that he did with Dr. Huberman there. He talks about the 5 kind of like, I call them like the order of operations within working out. Mechanical skill, speed, power, strength, hypertrophy. Follow those and you'll be A-okay. Most people tend to forget like these first 3 and they just want to go to hypertrophy and strength. But if you work in a little bit of power, a little bit of speed, and then your mechanical skill, like that's sometimes even just practicing with just the bar, that's mechanical skill. And then start going faster, that's speed, and powerful with force, you'll notice a big difference because now you're training across that whole spectrum that he's talking about. So I use that in the order of operations when I'm working out. We'll start with speed or mechanical skill. We'll work on power, strength, and hypertrophy after that. You get a little bit of everything when you're working out with me.
Exactly. And this is the thing that comes back to something we talked about in the beginning, is just like actually investing in yourself. You and I both went to that event, and we've hired, numerous coaches and mentors and teachers and stuff over our careers to learn these things. So we're talking about some stuff that I think is actually like pretty high level for the average person listening. And so even talking about those 5 pillars, like for someone to be able to design their own training program, not having any background knowledge, like including all those things, it's very simple for us. It's very difficult for like a regular person. And so like if you want results, like, again, we're biased because this is our job, but like making a small investment is actually going to get a good return on your effort rather than you going in the gym, spinning your tires for years and years and not getting any results, versus a relatively small investment of someone who knows what they're doing, put it all together for you. You just got to go in and execute.
Tim Grover, he was the coach for Kobe, for Jordan, and for D Wade. He talks about putting a routine in place. Put that routine in place. You have nothing to think about. Having a program is your routine. That's what you're working on. You have nothing to think about going to the gym. This is what you have to perform. Go do it. Exactly.
It's the easiest way to get things done. And then you just, again, best return on your effort. You're going to actually get the results that you're looking for.
The results that's our business. We're a results-based driven business, and you want results, do these things, you'll get your results.
That's it. Phil, I think we've given people a lot of things to think about in this conversation. I think we actually covered way more than I thought we were going to get into today.
This was great, man. I had no idea we were going to get into this, or I was going to be talking as much as I did, man. This was awesome, man. I'm grateful to know you, to meet you. Again, we've met in Andrew Coates' Zoom class or thing that he had, and we met in person, and I share your work a lot, dude. I love a lot of stuff that you write, man, and your podcast is awesome. I really enjoyed Chris's episode the other day because we heard that in person, and that was a wonderful story. I tell everyone to go listen to that one. If you're going to listen to your podcast, you're listening to that episode.
Yeah, exactly. Mark's podcast.
Mark.
Yeah. No, you're. Thank you very much for saying that. I appreciate you, man, and I love everything that you're doing, and I love seeing all your content and all your posts and all the things that are coming up for you. So I'm happy that we actually got to do this and get to share it with the people. And I'm sure people will have some questions because again, we talk about some stuff that's a little bit higher level, but I think we did a really good job of kind of breaking it down. Where can people find you? Rattle off your contact info. I'll point them to you, and I'll put it in the show notes as well.
Sure. On Instagram, I'm very big on Instagram. Usually I respond really quickly on that. Philly, PHILL _2434. You'll find me there. It's a picture of myself in this little blue sweater that Andy Morgan made me do at the event over there. Shout out to him on that. That's usually where you can find me. You can email me, dominguez.phil@gmail.com. You can find me on Trainer Eyes. It's on my Instagram handle there. So usually Instagram's the biggest thing where you can find me. You send me a message. I'll respond to you, either voicemail or video, however it is. And I'm just trying to build the relationships and networks just like I've done with yourself, man.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Definitely give Phil a follow on Instagram. Personal trainer, NFL team owner as well.
Go Pack Go.
Phil, is there any last message you want to leave the people with here in closing?
Just one of my biggest messages in life is have a great attitude and have a great effort. If you put both of those two together, you're going to have something really, really well done in life. So have a great attitude and great effort in everything you do, and just have a great day after this.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you. Phil Dominguez, everybody. Make sure you give him a follow. Share the podcast with someone who's going to benefit from hearing this. Listen back to it. Take your notes with it as well. Like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. And that's it. Appreciate you all. Go outside. Be a good person. See you next time.